I have not played since I was about a fourth grader.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because we had a new house and it was a new town and I didn't know anybody and so the horn just didn't get touched for a year.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't stand it anymore and I decided the best way, since I didn't know any musicians,
Mm-hmm.
but they had a community orchestra.
Oh.
And I said, well, why don't I go and play in a community orchestra? Because I know how to read and everything. You know,
Yeah.
I played in bands and orchestras. So I did that, and fairly shortly after I started doing that, a percussionist in the orchestra asked if I'd ever played, you know, any jazz or big band stuff, and I said yes. And it turned out he was a drummer in a good size, in a 10-piece
Oh, okay.
dance band that played all sorts of gigs, and you know, so I started playing with him, and then before I left Pittsburgh, I had played some clubs and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
too. But,
Yeah.
but I just, you know, it's something that you can do in a variety of ways for a long time. I mean, you know, you can play in municipal bands and orchestras. You can gig. You know,
Yeah, I got you.
I don't know.
It seems interesting, but what was the pay like for this? Like, I imagine you didn't survive off this, right?
That was not my day gig at all.
Yeah.
Okay? I did when I was in school, but
Mhm.
that was, I mean, hell, I went to school umpteen years before you were born. And, I mean, believe it or not, for 2 years of undergrad and for the last 2 years of undergrad, I worked 5 nights a week in a club.
Okay.
Made sure I didn't have 9 o'clock classes, or tried to avoid 9 o'clocks and have 10,
Yeah.
10 and later, because I wasn't getting out of the club until 1 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, it'll sound ludicrous to you, but I was making $20 a night, which meant a week I would make $100.
Yeah.
But my rent was $115 a month. So, you know, that
Yeah.
times are different, right? Now, I literally would not take a job that, I mean, I've played a lot of free gigs just for
Mhm.
fun with people.
Yeah.
But if I was going to take a paying gig, it would have to be at least $100, $150 a
That
night.
makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of pay that I used to make regularly playing gigging, okay? Just
Mhm.
playing clubs or playing, you know, a party or a dance or
Yeah,
whatever it
gotcha.
happened to be. But, and you're playing in the school band, right?
Mhm.
And are you playing in your school band or are you not?
I do in our school band and jazz band. And all that.
Okay, and you have a show band type thing or what?
It's like a big band.
Okay.
School band. Yeah.
Big band, okay. Yeah, I did that.
Where do you go after the school band though? Like.
Well, I think you do look around for things. I mean, when I got to, I went to Harvard.
Oh.
I went to school at Harvard. And I auditioned. I decided I wasn't going to play in the Harvard marching band
Mhm.
because they travel all the time. I mean, they travel to football games on weekends and stuff, and
Yeah.
I wasn't up for doing that particularly. I wanted to make some money somewhere or other.
Yeah.
And so I did two things when I was in school. I played in the Harvard Radcliffe Orchestra, which is a very, very
Yeah.
good
They're.
college level orchestra.
Mhm.
Okay. But then I happened to luck into something, and that was that I'd never played Dixieland. I'd always played big band stuff
Yeah, I
coming up
gotcha.
through high school. Okay.
Mhm.
Show band type stuff and dance band, 10-piece
Yeah.
dance band, 5 saxes, 2 trumpets, a trombone, piano, bass, and drums. That
Mhm.
kind of, you know,
Yeah.
everything on charts.
Yeah.
Everything written, everything charted out, okay? And I got to college and literally within the first 2 weeks I was there, a guy that had auditioned, was also a trombonist and had auditioned for the Harvard Radcliffe Orchestra at the same time I did. I ran into him on the campus and he said, "Did you see the article in the Crimson about holding auditions for a Dixieland band that's forming?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, they're going to have it at this time in this place," and you know. Well, I hadn't played Dixie, but I'd heard it because my dad was a big Louis Armstrong, Jack Teagarden fan. Okay, so I'd heard records of them playing. And in the big bands, we used to play occasionally an arrangement of a Dixie tune. So I said, "Screw it, I'll audition." And I managed to bluff my way through the audition and knew a few of the tunes and played. And they luckily didn't have anybody who auditioned who was better than I was. So I started playing with them. And luckily, it was a good band. I mean, piano, it was a standard Dixieland band. It was piano, bass, drums, tuba, not string bass because it was a Dixie band.
Yeah,
so it was tuba, piano, drums, and then trumpet, trombone, and clarinet. And we had a banjo player who had just graduated from Harvard Business School and was working for his dad in Boston. We were obviously in the Boston area. And the great thing was that the guy who led the band was at Harvard Law School, and he was a mediocre piano player, but he was a great booker. So he booked gigs. I mean, he just went out and got gigs all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I played with that band for 2 years, and then the guy who was our banjo player very much wanted to open a banjo band nightclub, and so he did in Boston. And that was how I went through school, playing at night in his club. So, I mean, not your standard, but I never had objectives of trying to make my living as a musician.
Yeah, I
I just said, it's too hard. It's opposite. You know, you're always you're working at night, not during the daytime. Mm-hmm. Until you get to be, unless you're really accomplished, and then you're playing concerts at night, people, you know, or you're whatever. So I just played in different jazz groups from the time I stopped playing in a banjo band club, right up to now. I mean, I played up until recently. I played with 2 different Dixieland bands, and I was, you know. They don't have anywhere near as much work as they used to, because why? Because they cater to an older audience, and the older audience is dying, and therefore, you know, now you don't, you know, you go out, you don't see bands playing, you see disc jockeys. I mean, they've got recorded music, and they're not, the bands aren't playing anymore. So, you know, except for summer concerts, right? You go to the park and you see a summer concert by a band, but half of those are rock bands and singers, and you know, I don't begrudge them. You know, that's what there's demand for. So, you know,
who are you playing with now, though?
I'm only doing. There are a couple of bands. Both of them are in Connecticut. Are based in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So I travel to where they're playing, and one of the guys gets gigs. You know, sometimes they're concerts, sometimes they're I wouldn't say dances, but a country club type gig. Where we'll play, and we'll play for the cocktail hour, and then we'll play a little after dinner and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But though it's one of them is called the Galvanized Jazz Band, the other one is called the Bearcats, and they're both predominantly Dixie bands. Okay?
Yeah,
just because I know. The other places that I played, the guys died. I mean, they died, and I wasn't going to try to form groups, and I just didn't have the time before I retired. I didn't have the interest to try to form a group myself. So,
That makes
you know,
sense.
so.
You
But,
tried forming groups at all? Or?
I booked some bands, but not put them, put them together.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to try to get charts, and I wasn't,
Yeah.
some guys have done
Expensive.
that, but I'm not something I wanted to do. So
Price of music is getting expensive
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah. So well, I wish I had been able to know some of your tunes better.
No
But,
worries, man. No worries, man.
Not